As 2026 approaches, the most powerful question is not what will you add to your life, but what must you release? Because growth does not begin with accumulation. Growth begins with subtraction. Before you step into a new year, a new season, a new level, you must first make space. Naprochest. And space is created by letting go of what no longer serves who you are becoming. You see, fear has a voice. It sounds logical. It sounds responsible. It tells you to wait, to be cautious, to stay where it's safe. But fear was never meant to lead you. Fear is a signal, not a master. When you release fear, you don't become reckless. You become free. Free to act with faith. Free to trust that what placed the dream in your heart also placed the strength in your spirit to pursue it. And then there are excuses. Excuses feel comfortable because they protect the ego. They tell us why now is not the right time. Why conditions must be perfect, why someone else should go first. But purpose does not wait for comfort. Purpose responds to commitment. When you release excuses, you reclaim responsibility. And responsibility is power. Because the moment you own your life, you gain the ability to change it. Some of the hardest things to release are people, not because they are bad, but because they are misaligned. Not everyone who started with you is meant to finish with you. And that's not betrayal. That's growth. When you release toxic connections, you are not rejecting others. You are honoring the future that is calling you forward. You must also release the need for approval. When you live for applause, you die by silence. Your calling was never meant to be voted on. What? It was meant to be lived. The moment you stop asking, will they accept me? And start asking, am I aligned with my purpose? Your life gains clarity and courage. Release the weight of the past. Failure is not a life sentence. It is feedback. Regret is not a destination. It is a lesson. You were not created to be chained to yesterday. Forgive yourself. Learn. Move forward. Grace is not weakness. It is strength under control. Let go of habits that drain your energy and dull your spirit. Discipline is not punishment. It is devotion to your future self. And finally, release a life without meaning. You were not created to merely survive. You were created to serve, to grow, to lead, and to contribute something eternal through temporary actions. Before 2026 begins, let go. Because what you release determines what you can receive. And when you release what no longer serves you, you make room for a life that truly reflects who you were always meant to be. Fear is the quiet force that convinces you to shrink your dreams before the world ever gets the chance to challenge them. It doesn't arrive. It doesn't arrive loudly or aggressively. It comes disguised as logic, caution, and responsibility. It tells you to wait until you are more ready, more confident, more secure. But the truth is, fear does not disappear with time. It disappears with action. And every year you allow fear to make decisions for you, you unknowingly train yourself to live beneath your true capacity. Fear keeps you playing small not because you lack ability, but because you doubt permission. You begin to ask yourself, who am I to want more? Who am I to step forward? Who am I to lead? But purpose never asks for permission. Purpose demands courage, and courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something else matters more than fear. When you release fear, you don't become fearless. You become faith-driven. Fear convinces you that safety is found in comfort zones, when in reality, comfort zones slowly suffocate growth. Nothing meaningful is built there. Your potential was never designed to remain protected. It was designed to be expressed. Every gift placed inside you comes with responsibility. And fear, if left unchecked, will turn responsibility into regret. You see, fear focuses on what might go wrong. Faith focuses on who you become when you try. Fear asks, what if I fail? Faith asks, what if I grow? The divine principle here is simple. What you focus on expands. If you focus on fear, limitations grow. If you focus on purpose, strength grows. And the moment you choose purpose over fear, your identity begins to shift. You stop seeing yourself as someone who reacts to life and start seeing yourself as someone who creates it. Releasing fear means accepting uncertainty without losing trust. It means understanding that clarity comes after movement, not before it. You were never meant to see the entire path. Only the next step. And that next step requires belief, not guarantees. Fear demands proof. Purpose demands commitment. When you let go of fear, you align with the truth that you are supported by something greater than your doubts. You realize that hesitation is costing you more than failure ever could. And in that realization, something powerful happens. You stop waiting to feel ready and start acting ready. That is the moment your life begins to expand beyond limits you once thought were permanent. Excuses are subtle agreements you make with limitation. They don't sound destructive. They sound reasonable. They tell you that timing is off, resources are lacking, or circumstances are unfair. And the longer you listen to them, the more convincing they become. But excuses are never rooted in truth. They are rooted in comfort. They exist to protect you from discomfort, from responsibility, and from the possibility of discovering how powerful you truly are. Every excuse shifts responsibility away from you and places it on something outside your control. When you do that, you also give away your power. Because power only lives where responsibility is accepted. Numbulance? The moment you say, "I'll start when things get better," you place your future in the hands of conditions you cannot command. Purpose, however, does not wait for ideal conditions. Purpose responds to decision. And the moment you decide, your inner world begins to reorganize around that commitment. Excuses delay action, and delayed action slowly erodes belief. Each time you postpone what you know you should do, you weaken trust in yourself. Over time, this creates a dangerous cycle. You stop believing in your own work. And when you can't trust yourself, confidence collapses. Releasing excuses is not about being harsh with yourself. It's about being honest. Honest enough to admit that growth requires effort, and effort requires discomfort. Excuses often disguise fear. Fear of failure. Fear of failure. Fear of success. And the responsibility that comes with it. But when you label fear as an excuse, it loses its power. You realize that what you've been avoiding is not pain, but growth. And growth always demands that you leave behind the version of yourself that feels familiar. There is a divine principle at work here. What you tolerate, you empower. You empower. If you tolerate excuses, you empower stagnation. If you tolerate responsibility, you empower transformation. Discipline is not about force. It is about alignment. It is choosing actions that honor the future you are committed to becoming. When you release excuses, something remarkable happens. You stop negotiating with your potential. You stop waiting for permission. You stop explaining why your life is the way it is, and start shaping why it will become better. You realize that you don't need more time, more motivation, or more approval. You need a decision followed by consistent action. Excuses keep you stuck in explanations. Responsibility moves you into execution. And once you cross that line, momentum begins to build. Not because life suddenly becomes easier, but because you become stronger, clearer, and more committed to the calling placed on your life. Some relationships don't drain you because they are openly harmful, but because they quietly pull you away from who you are meant to become. These connections feel familiar, comfortable, and safe, yet they slowly erode your energy, clarity, and confidence. Not every toxic environment is loud or dramatic. Some are subtle. They normalize small thinking, discourage growth, and reward you for staying the same. And the longer you remain in those spaces, the harder it becomes to hear the call of your own purpose. You must understand this truth. Proximity influences perspective. The people you surround yourself with shape how you think, what you tolerate, and what you believe is possible. When you stay connected to environments that thrive on negativity, gossip, or complacency, you begin to adopt those patterns without realizing it. Over time, you start to confuse loyalty with self-sacrifice and familiarity with alignment. But alignment is not about history. It is about direction. Releasing toxic relationships is not an act of anger. It is an act of self-respect. You are not obligated to stay in spaces that stunt your growth just because you once belonged there. Growth requires discernment, the ability to recognize when something has fulfilled its purpose in your life. Some people are meant to walk with you for a season, teach you a lesson, or support a specific phase of your journey. When that season ends, holding on becomes resistance, not faith. There is also a divine principle here. Your environment must support your assignment. Duh. Seeds do not grow in every type of soil, no matter how powerful they are. If the soil is wrong, the seed struggles. And many people blame themselves for not thriving, when the real issue is where they are planted. When you change your environment, you don't change who you are. You finally give yourself permission to grow. Letting go can feel uncomfortable because it challenges your identity. You may fear being misunderstood, judged, or labeled as selfish. But peace is not found in pleasing everyone. Peace is found in honoring the direction you are being called to follow. When you release draining connections, you create space for relationships that sharpen you, challenge you, and elevate your vision. Detachment is not rejection. It is wisdom. It is choosing to protect your energy, your values, and your future. And when you make that choice, you discover that your capacity increases, and your focus sharpens. Your purpose becomes clearer. Because once you stop pouring into what drains you, you finally have enough strength to build what you were meant to lead. The need for approval quietly shapes more lives than failure ever does. It trains people to edit themselves, soften their truth, and delay their purpose in exchange for acceptance. At first, it feels harmless, just wanting to be liked, understood, supported. But over time, it becomes a cage. When your worth is tied to validation, your direction is controlled by opinions. And opinions are unstable, inconsistent, and often rooted in the limitations of those who hold them. Seeking approval teaches you to ask the wrong questions. Instead of asking, "Is this aligned with who I'm becoming?" you begin to ask, "Will they approve of this? Will I be criticized? Will I be rejected?" That shift slowly disconnects you from your inner compass. You stop listening to conviction and start listening to consensus. But purpose was never designed to be popular. It was designed to be meaningful. There is a powerful principle here. When you live for applause, you surrender authority over your life. Applause fades. Silence follows. And if approval is your fuel, silence will feel like failure. Releasing the need for validation is not about becoming indifferent to others. It is about becoming anchored in truth. It is choosing inner alignment over external affirmation. Approval. Seeking often comes from fear of rejection, but rejection is not always a sign you are wrong. Sometimes it is proof that you are different. History is filled with people who were doubted before they were understood. If you require agreement before obedience to your calling, you will remain stuck waiting for permission that was never meant to be given. Divine purpose speaks quietly but clearly. It doesn't shout over the crowd. It whispers to the heart. And the more you depend on outside voices, the harder it becomes to hear that whisper. Releasing approval means trusting that the voice within you is guided, intentional, and sufficient. It means understanding that not everyone will celebrate your growth, especially if it challenges their comfort. When you let go of validation, something liberating happens. You gain courage to speak honestly, act boldly, and move forward without needing constant reassurance. You stop performing and start living. You no longer measure your worth by reactions, but by integrity. Approval will always demand compromise. Purpose demands commitment. And the moment you choose commitment over approval, your life gains clarity, direction, and peace. You realize that you were never meant to be accepted by everyone, only to be faithful to the work you were placed here to do. The past has a way of holding people hostage, not because it is powerful, but because it is familiar. Past failures replay themselves in the mind like unfinished conversations, constantly reminding you of what went wrong, what you should have done, and who you could have been by now. Guilt and regret whisper that your best chances are behind you, that mistakes define you, and that redemption must be earned through suffering. But that belief is not wisdom. It is bondage. Failure was never meant to be a final verdict. It is information. It is instruction. It is instruction. It is evidence that you were brave enough to try. The problem begins when you personalize the outcome instead of extracting the lesson. When failure becomes your identity instead of your teacher, it turns into shame. And shame does not correct behavior. It corrodes belief. It corrodes belief. It convinces you that growth is risky and that staying stuck is safer. Regret works the same way. It keeps your attention fixed backward while life demands forward movement. You replay old decisions as if the mind could rewrite history through punishment. But growth does not come from self-condemnation. Growth comes from self-awareness. You cannot heal what you keep judging. You cannot move forward while dragging the weight of yesterday into today. There is a deeper principle at work. Grace is not denial of responsibility. It is release from paralysis. Taking ownership of the past does not require carrying it forever. It requires learning, forgiving, and choosing differently moving forward. Forgiveness, especially self-forgiveness, is not weakness. It is alignment. It is the recognition that you are still becoming, still evolving, still allowed to grow beyond your worst moments. Holding on to guilt feels noble, as if punishment proves sincerity. But punishment does not produce transformation. Commitment does. The energy you spend reliving the past is energy stolen from building the future. And every day you refuse to release regret, you silently agree to limit your potential. Releasing the past means accepting that you did the best you could with the awareness you had at the time. It means trusting that wisdom is born through experience, not perfection. You are not disqualified because you stumbled. You are refined because you learned. You are refined because you learned. When you let go of past failures, something shifts internally. Your confidence is no longer fragile because it is no longer based on being flawless. It is based on resilience. You stop trying to prove yourself and start improving yourself. And in that shift, your vision clears. You realize that the past was not sent to imprison you, but to prepare you. And once you release it, you finally give yourself permission to step fully into the future that has been waiting for you all along. Habits are the invisible architecture of your life. They shape your days, direct your energy, and quietly determine your future. Many people believe their limitations come from a lack of opportunity, when in reality they come from patterns repeated without awareness. Habits that once served you can slowly become obstacles when your vision expands. What helped you survive one season may sabotage you in the next if you refuse to evolve. Every habit carries an identity with it. The things you do consistently reinforce who you believe you are. When your habits are misaligned with your future vision, they create internal conflict. You say you want growth, discipline, and purpose, yet your daily actions tell a different story. Over time, this disconnect drains motivation and creates frustration. Not because you are incapable, but because you are out of alignment. Releasing old habits is not about self-control alone. It is about clarity. You must decide who you are becoming before you decide what you are changing. When you gain clarity about your future self, certain habits naturally lose their appeal. You begin to see them not as comforts, but as costs. Every habit either compounds your growth or compounds your stagnation. There is no neutral ground. There is a principle here that cannot be ignored. What you practice, you strengthen. If you practice distraction, you strengthen inconsistency. If you practice discipline, you strengthen trust in yourself. Discipline is often misunderstood as restriction, but in truth, it is direction. It is the daily act of choosing what matters most over what feels easiest in the moment. Many habits persist not because they are powerful, but because they are familiar. Familiarity feels safe, even when it is destructive. Breaking a habit requires willingness to sit in discomfort long enough for a new identity to form. Transformation always feels awkward at first because you are leaving behind a version of yourself that once felt normal. When you release habits that no longer serve your future, you reclaim energy. Your focus sharpens. Your confidence grows, not from motivation, but from consistency. Small disciplined actions, repeated daily, begin to create momentum. And momentum changes self-belief. You are not asked to be perfect, only intentional. Replace habits that drain you with habits that develop you. Align your routines with your values. When your daily actions reflect your long-term vision, life begins to feel coherent, purposeful, and powerful. And in that alignment, you stop forcing growth and start embodying it. A life without purpose is not always empty on the outside. Often it looks busy, productive, and even successful. But underneath the motion, there is a quiet sense of disconnection. You wake up, move through routines, achieve goals, and still feel something missing. That feeling is not weakness. It is a signal. It is the inner awareness that you were created for more than repetition, survival, and passing time. Purpose is not just about what you do. It is about why you do it. When the why is missing, motivation fades quickly. You may push yourself for a while through discipline or pressure, but eventually the soul resists meaningless effort. Without purpose, even success feels heavy. You start asking, is this all there is? That question is not a complaint. It is an invitation to align your life with meaning. There is a divine order to purpose. Nothing created is random. Seeds are designed to grow. Rivers are designed to flow. And you are designed to contribute something unique through your existence. Purpose is the intersection of who you are, what you've been through, and who you are meant to serve. It is not found in comparison, and it is not discovered through noise. It is revealed through reflection, service, and obedience to what stirs your spirit. When you live without purpose, decisions become confusing. You chase opportunities instead of direction. You say yes to things that drain you, and no to things that fulfill you. Goodbye, and may your 2026 be your most empowered and purposeful year yet.